Look at this child. It is late 1897. We are inside the massive stone walls of Lambach Abbey in Upper Austria. The air is cold and smells of frankincense and beeswax. A small, pale boy stands in the choir stalls. He is 8 years old. He opens his mouth to sing, and a high, clear soprano voice echoes against the vaulted ceiling. He is not shouting speeches of hate. He is singing praise to God. This is the terrifying paradox. We are looking at Adolf Hitler not as the dictator who will burn Europe to ash, but as a devout altar boy who dreams of becoming a priest. But look closer. Look above the stone archway where the boy stands. Carved into the rock is a crest. It belongs to the former abbot. And in the center of that crest, chiseled into the stone, is a geometric shape, a hooked cross, a swastika. History tells us this is a coincidence. Psychology tells us nothing is ever truly forgotten. Does the nightmare of the 20th century begin here, in the holy silence of a monastery? Does the boy see the symbol, or does the symbol see him? The mechanism of destruction is being assembled, piece by innocent piece. The year is 1897. The Hitler family moves to Lambach, a market town steeped in Catholic tradition. For the father, Alois, this is just another station in a restless, bureaucratic life. But for the 8-year-old Adolf, Lambach is a revelation. The family apartment is located directly across the street from the Benedictine monastery. Every morning, the shadow of the abbey falls over the boy's window. It is inescapable. We must analyze the environment to understand the pathology. At home, the atmosphere is volatile. Alois is 59 years old, a retired customs official defined by rigidity, a short temper, and the heavy hand of discipline. The home is a place of tension, ruled by the father's whistle. In stark contrast, the monastery represents absolute order, but it is an order draped in beauty. Young Adolf joins the choir school. He is an excellent student. His teachers describe him as obedient, lively, and pious. This is crucial. The future destroyer of nations begins his intellectual life as a conformist. He does not rebel against the structure of the church. He submits to it completely. In the choir, he finds something he lacks at home: validation. When he sings, he is heard. When he wears the cassock, he is part of a hierarchy that transcends the petty tyranny of his father. He walks through the great carved doors of the abbey. The transition is physical. He leaves the dusty, mundane streets of Lambach and enters a world of gold leaf, towering statues, and stained glass that turns sunlight into blood and fire. The acoustics of the church amplify his voice, making him feel larger than he is. For a boy who feels small and powerless before a stern father, the church offers a different kind of power, the power of ritual. Psychologically, this is the imprint phase. The boy absorbs the aesthetics of authority. He watches the solemn processions. He sees how the townspeople bow their heads when the priests pass. He observes that in this sanctuary, silence commands respect. He is learning the language of stagecraft. He is not learning theology. He is learning how to hold a room. Historical records confirm that during this period, Adolf is often seen playing priest at home. He drapes a kitchen apron over his shoulders to mimic vestments. He climbs onto a kitchen chair and delivers long, passionate sermons to his sister. This is not just child's play. It is a rehearsal. He is mimicking the figure who holds the attention of the crowd. At 8 years old, he does not want to be a soldier. He wants to be the abbot. He wants to be the voice of God. The tragedy is that the container, the church, is holy, but the substance filling the boy's mind is purely about the mechanics of control. To understand the ambition, we must identify the idol. In the hierarchy of Lambach Abbey, there is one figure who dominates the landscape. It is not the humble monk praying in the corner. It is the abbot, Theodoric Hagn. For the young Adolf, Hagn is not merely a religious leader. He is the physical embodiment of absolute authority. The abbot does not wear the gray, dusty uniform of a customs official like Alois Hitler. He wears robes of silk and gold. He carries a staff that looks like a scepter. When he walks through the nave, the air changes. People kneel. They kiss his ring. For a boy living under the roof of a father who demands respect but only receives fear, the abbot represents a higher form of power. This is power that does not need to raise its voice. It is power that is worshipped. We must look at the psychological concept of the substitute father. Alois is the reality father, flawed, angry, and limiting. The abbot becomes the ideal father, distant, magnificent, and omnipotent. Adolf observes the pageantry of the High Mass. He sees the abbot standing at the altar, elevated above the congregation, surrounded by smoke and mystery. The boy in the choir stall looks down and thinks, that is what it means to be a great man. Historical biographers note that during this specific interval, the boy's behavior changes. He becomes obsessed with the aesthetics of leadership. He organizes his playmates into groups. He assigns ranks. He mimics the solemnity of the abbot, not the shouting of his father. He is testing a hypothesis that true power comes from performance, from costume, and from distance. There is a critical detail in the Abbey archives. Abbot Hagen is a man of culture, interested in art and music, but he is also a rigid disciplinarian who restored the Abbey's fortunes through strict rule. He is a builder and a ruler. Young Adolf, who already harbors a secret passion for architecture and art, sees a path where art and power intersect. In the figure of the abbot, he sees that an artist can also be a king. The boy tells his mother, Clara, that he intends to enter the priesthood. Clara is overjoyed. She is a deeply pious woman who dreams of her son serving God. Alois is furious. To the pragmatic civil servant, the priesthood is a waste of a life. But for Adolf, the choice is not about theology. It is about the uniform. He does not want to serve the humble carpenter from Nazareth. He wants to be the man in the golden robe who holds the crowd in the palm of his hand. He is falling in love with the vessel, not the water inside it. We now approach the most chilling coincidence in modern history. It is a detail so strange that it feels like fiction, yet it is carved into the solid rock of reality. As the young Adolf moves through the abbey, his eyes are constantly drawn to a specific recurring motif. It is part of the heraldry of the former abbot, Third Reich. The abbot had traveled to the Middle East and brought back a symbol common in Eastern iconography representing eternity, the sun, or cosmic order. In 1860, Father Hagen incorporated this shape into his personal coat of arms. It is a cross with arms bent at right angles. In German, it is the Hakenkreuz, the hooked cross. The boy sees it everywhere. It is chiseled into the stone lintel above the spring in the monastery grotto. It is painted on the shield held by a stone lion over the gateway. Every time the boy enters the building to sing, he passes under this sign. Every time he drinks water from the abbey well, the symbol is there, watching him. We must understand the mechanism of memory. The human brain records images even when the conscious mind is not paying attention. For the 8-year-old Adolf, this shape is not political. It is mystical. It is linked to the incense, the organ music, and the terrifying authority of the abbot. The symbol is fused with the concept of holy power. It represents the absolute ruler who commands the soul. Decades later, in the summer of 1920, a 31-year-old Hitler will sit at a desk in Munich, obsessively sketching designs for a new party flag. He will reject design after design until he draws a black hook cross in a white circle on a red field. He will claim it is an original inspiration, but psychology suggests otherwise. The inspiration is not new. It is a ghost from his childhood. He is retrieving a file stored in his subconscious during those long afternoons at Lambach. He takes a symbol of divine eternity and twists it into a symbol of racial struggle. But notice the geometry. The swastika is rigid, angular, and aggressive. It rotates. It has momentum. For a boy who feels the chaos of his home life, the sharp lines of the Hakenkreuz offer a sense of hard, unyielding structure. At Lambach, the swastika is surrounded by the Latin words in hoc signo vinces. In this sign, you will conquer. The monks use it to mean spiritual victory over sin. The boy reads the words, he absorbs the shape, but he strips away the spiritual meaning. He keeps only the promise of conquest. He steals the logo of God to brand a movement of the devil. The theft begins here in the innocent gaze of a choir boy looking up at a stone archway. The dream of the monastery does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in a war zone. To understand why the young Hitler clings so tightly to the church, we must look at the enemy he is fighting at home. His father, Alois, is a man of the 19th century secular state. He is a civil servant who believes in rules, taxes, and the government. He views the church with suspicion. To Alois, priests are idlers in black robes who produce nothing. The dynamic in the Hitler household is a classic psychological triangle. On one corner is the father, loud, physically imposing, and violently anti-clerical. On the second corner is the mother, Clara, soft, depressive, and deeply religious. On the third corner is the child, Adolf, watching them collide. When Adolf comes home singing Latin hymns, it irritates his father. The boy knows this. Psychologists call this oppositional identity. The boy embraces the church not just because he loves the ritual, but because he knows it is the one thing that his father cannot touch. God outranks a customs official. By aspiring to be a priest, the powerless boy finds a way to look down on his powerful father. The arguments at the dinner table are intense. Alois wants his son to follow in his footsteps, to become a civil servant. He wants Adolf to wear a uniform of the state. Adolf, emboldened by his success in the choir, refuses. He says he wants to be a priest. This is an act of open rebellion. For a brief moment in 1898, the church is the boy's fortress. We see here the formation of a dangerous personality trait, the refusal to compromise. The boy does not try to find a middle ground. He retreats into a fantasy of absolute moral superiority. He spends hours in the monastery, avoiding the heavy atmosphere of the apartment. In the abbey, the monks treat him with kindness. They praise his voice. At home, he is whistled at like a book. Alois literally uses a small signal whistle to summon his children. But there is a crack in the armor. While the boy loves the idea of being an abbot, he lacks the discipline of a monk. The Benedictine rule requires humility, silence, and service to others. Young Adolf displays none of these traits outside the sanctuary. He is known to be bossy with other children. He demands to be the leader in their war games. The priest dream is a mask. He does not want to serve God. He wants the authority that God grants. He is using religion as a shield against his father. But underneath the cassock, the ego is growing unchecked. The end of the dream comes not with a bang, but with a moving van. In 1899, the Hitler family leaves Lambach. They move to Leonding, a village without a magnificent abbey, without the gold, and without the music. The physical structure that held the boy's imagination together is gone. Suddenly, the priest's dream begins to starve. Without the daily reinforcement of the incense and the liturgy, the ambition fades. The reality of his father's world crashes back in. Alois retires permanently. The family is now trapped in a small house with a restless, angry man who has nothing to do but micromanage his children. The ideal father of the abbey is replaced by the reality father of the living room. Adolf changes. The obedient choir boy vanishes. In his place, a sullen, rebellious student emerges. He stops singing. He starts fighting. The grades collapse. The teachers who once praised him now describe him as arrogant and lazy. Psychologists trace this collapse to the loss of his stage. At Lambach, he was a performer. In Leonding, he is just a son. But the mechanism has already been built. The software is installed. It just needs a new operating system. He no longer wants to be a priest, but the desire to be an abbot figure remains. He begins to replace the iconography of Catholicism with the iconography of German nationalism. He swaps the saints for Teutonic knights. He swaps the hymns for Wagnerian operas. There is a terrifying continuity here. The boy who wanted to stand in the pulpit and save souls becomes the man who wants to stand on the podium and purge nations. The structure is identical. Both roles require a uniform. Both roles require a congregation. Both roles demand absolute faith from the audience. By the time he is a teenager, the church is a distant memory. He rejects it. He mocks religion. But he never forgets the lesson of the swastika. He never forgets how it felt to see 1,000 people kneel in unison. He realizes that he does not want to be the servant of God. He wants to be the new God. The tragedy of Lambach Abbey is not that he failed to become a priest. The tragedy is that he learned the wrong lesson. He learned that if you build a magnificent enough stage, the world will forgive you for anything. The abbey still stands today. The stone archway is still there. If you visit Lambach, you can still see the coat of arms of Abbot Hagen. The hooked cross is still carved into the rock, silent and indifferent. It has outlived the boy. It has outlived the monster. We tell ourselves that monsters are born evil. It comforts us. It makes us feel safe. But the story of the choir boy proves something far more disturbing. Evil is not always a seed. Sometimes it is a graft. It attaches itself to things that are beautiful, music, architecture, faith, and twists them until they are unrecognizable. Adolf Hitler did not become a priest, but he created a religion. He built a cathedral of ice and light at Nuremberg. He demanded worship. He promised salvation. And in the end, he sacrificed millions on the altar of his own ego. The boy who sang for God became the man who tried to kill God. The mechanism of influence he learned at Lambach is not gone. It is in the algorithms we watch, the politicians we idolize, and the symbols we blindly follow. The tools of the abbot are waiting for the next hand to pick them up. History is a cycle, and the choir is always singing. If you want to understand the darkness, you must first study the light that casts the shadow. Subscribe to this channel. We will continue to dismantle the psychology of history piece by piece. The lesson is finished, but the warning never ends.